The first thing you need to know about discovering your wife's affair is that it doesn't happen like in the movies. There's no dramatic music, no slow-motion revelation, no perfectly timed confrontation. Instead, it happens at 3:17 in the morning, when you're lying in bed listening to your wife's phone buzz against the nightstand like an angry wasp. Deke flashed across the screen for the 4th time in 10 minutes. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Raymond Calder, and I used to think I was lucky. 42 years old, owner of a small but profitable consulting firm, married to Elena, the kind of woman who turns heads at dinner parties. We lived in a restored brownstone in Eastport, Maine, the kind of place where successful people pretend their lives are perfect. Elena stirred beside me, her manicured hand reaching for the phone with practiced stealth. She thought I was asleep. I'd been pretending for weeks now, watching her late-night texting sessions, her mysterious work trips, her sudden interest in the gym. "Everything okay?" I whispered. She jumped like I'd fired a gun. "Jesus, Ray, you scared me. It's just work stuff. Go back to sleep." Work stuff. At 3 in the morning. From someone named Deke with a flexing bicep emoji. Elena slipped out of bed, phone clutched to her chest, and padded to the bathroom. I heard the lock click. Through the thin walls of our old house, I could hear her whispering urgently, though I couldn't make out the words. When she returned 20 minutes later, I was still awake, staring at the ceiling. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked, sliding back under the covers. "Just thinking." "About what?" I turned to look at her in the dim light filtering through our curtains. Even at 3:40 in the morning, Elena looked perfect. Her blonde hair fell in careful waves across her pillow. Her skin glowed with expensive moisturizers. Her lips were still faintly pink from whatever lipstick she'd worn to her client dinner that evening. "About us," I said. "About how we never talk anymore." She sighed, the kind of theatrical sigh she'd perfected during her brief stint in community theater. "Ray, we talk all the time." "Do we? When's the last time we had a real conversation? Not about bills or schedules or whose turn it is to call the plumber?" "I don't know. I'm tired, Ray. Can we do this tomorrow?" Tomorrow. Always tomorrow with Elena. Tomorrow we'd talk. Tomorrow we'd plan that vacation. Tomorrow we'd work on our marriage. Tomorrow had been coming for 3 years now, and it never seemed to arrive. "Sure," I said. "Tomorrow." But I was done waiting for tomorrow. The next morning, Elena was already dressed for work when I came downstairs. She stood at the kitchen island, scrolling through her phone while sipping coffee from her favorite mug, the one that said, "Boss Lady," in gold script. "I think we should see a counselor," she announced without looking up. I nearly choked on my coffee. "What?" "A marriage counselor. I've been thinking about what you said last night, and I think we need professional help." This was Rich. The woman who'd been sneaking around with Deke the Muscle wanted to fix our marriage with therapy. "Okay," I said carefully. "I'm willing to try that." She looked surprised, like she'd expected me to argue. "Really?" "Really. When do you want to start?" I already made us an appointment. Today at 4:30 with Dr. Julia Marks. She's supposed to be excellent. Of course, she'd already made the appointment. Elena never did anything without having 3 backup plans and an exit strategy. It was what made her so good at her job at the advertising agency, and apparently, what made her so good at cheating. "I'll have to reschedule a client meeting, but I can make it work." "Good." She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "Oh, and Ray, maybe wear something nice. First impressions matter." After she left, I sat in my kitchen drinking coffee and thinking about the woman I'd married 8 years ago. Elena had been different then, warmer, more spontaneous, less concerned with appearances. Or maybe I'd just been too infatuated to notice the warning signs. My phone rang. Louise, my younger sister. "Morning, sunshine. You sound like death. Thanks, Lou. You always know just what to say. Rough night? I considered telling her about Elena's late-night phone calls, about Deke, about the growing certainty that my marriage was over. But Louise had never liked Elena, had warned me from the beginning that something wasn't right about her. Just couldn't sleep. Well, perk up, Buttercup. I've got news. Remember that guy Elena's been posting pictures with on Instagram? The gym owner? My blood went cold. What guy? Come on, Ray. Derek Mallory? Owns that fancy fitness place downtown? She's been tagging him in all her workout posts for months. Derek. Deke. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. I haven't been paying attention to her Instagram. Maybe you should. I'm just saying, if my husband was posting gym selfies with some muscle-bound pretty boy every other day, I'd have questions. After Louise hung up, I did something I'd never done before. I stalked my own wife on social media. Elena's Instagram was a carefully curated collection of inspirational quotes, healthy meals, and workout photos. And there, in at least a dozen posts over the past 3 months, was Derek Mallory. Deke, 6'2" of sculpted muscle and white teeth, always positioned just a little too close to my wife. The captions were innocent enough. Great training session with Derek. Pushing my limits with the best trainer in town. Grateful for all the motivation. But the photos told a different story. The way his hand lingered on her waist during form corrections. The way she looked at him in the mirror during their training sessions. The way they stood together after workouts, both glowing with sweat and something that definitely wasn't just endorphins. I scrolled back further, looking for the first appearance of Derek Mallory in my wife's social media life. There it was, 4 months ago. New trainer, new goals. The photo showed Elena and Derek shaking hands in the gym, both smiling broadly. 4 months. My wife had been building a relationship with another man for 4 months, documenting it on social media for everyone to see, except her own husband. I clicked on Derek's profile, personal trainer, gym owner, lifestyle influencer, the kind of guy who posted shirtless mirror selfies with captions about grinding and living your best life. His bio read, helping people transform their bodies and minds, DM for training inquiries, Eastport, born and raised. His recent posts were a mix of workout videos, protein shake ads, and photos from around town, including several that I now realized were taken at the same places Elena claimed to be during her mysterious errands. At 4:30 sharp, Elena and I sat in Dr. Julia Marks's waiting room. The office was designed to be calming, soft lighting, neutral colors, abstract art that didn't mean anything to anyone. Elena fidgeted with her phone while I pretended to read a magazine about mindful living. Mr. and Mrs. Calder? Dr. Marks appeared in the doorway. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe mid-30s, with kind eyes and the sort of calm presence that probably cost $300 an hour. Her office was more of the same soothing decor, with 2 comfortable chairs facing each other and Dr. Marks's chair positioned to observe both of us. So, Dr. Marks began, what brings you here today? Elena launched into a prepared speech about communication issues and growing apart and the need to reconnect. She spoke like she was presenting to clients, all polished phrases and strategic pauses. Ray doesn't seem invested in our relationship anymore, she concluded. He's distant, distracted. I feel like I'm married to a stranger. Dr. Marks turned to me. Ray, how do you respond to that? I looked at my wife, sitting there in her designer dress, playing the role of the concerned spouse, and something inside me snapped. I think Elena's right, I said. She is married to a stranger. The question is, which one of us changed? Elena's carefully composed expression flickered for just a moment. What do you mean by that, Ray? Dr. Marks asked. I mean that 3 months ago, my wife suddenly became obsessed with fitness, started spending hours at the gym, posting workout photos with her trainer, going on mysterious errands that always seemed to coincide with her trainer's schedule. Ray, Elena started. I mean that she's been getting text messages at 3 in the morning from someone named Deke, and when I ask about it, she tells me it's work stuff. Dr. Marks leaned forward slightly. Elena, how do you respond to Ray's concerns? He's being paranoid, Elena said, but her voice had lost some of its polish. Derek is my trainer. We have a professional relationship. Derek, I repeated. I thought his name was Deke. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. It's the same person, Elena said finally. Derek goes by Deke. It's a nickname. And the 3 a.m. text messages? He has insomnia. Sometimes he sends motivational messages at odd hours. Dr. Marks was watching this exchange with the focused attention of someone who'd seen this exact scenario play out many times before. Elena, she said gently, in my experience, when one partner in a marriage develops a close relationship with someone of the opposite intimacy, especially when that relationship involves secrecy or deception, it often indicates deeper issues in the marriage. There's no deception, Elena said, but she was looking at her hands instead of at me or Dr. Marks. Then you won't mind if I look at these motivational messages? I asked. Elena's head snapped up. That's a violation of privacy. Between spouses? Between any two people. I have a right to private conversations. Dr. Marks intervened before I could respond. Privacy in marriage is important, but so is transparency. Elena, if these messages are truly innocent, why not share them with Ray to ease his concerns? Because I shouldn't have to prove my innocence. He should trust me. Trust is earned, I said. And lately, you haven't been acting very trustworthy. The session continued for another 30 minutes, with Dr. Marks skillfully guiding the conversation, while Elena became increasingly defensive, and I became increasingly certain that my marriage was over. As we were leaving, Dr. Marks handed me a business card, not hers, a lawyer's. Sometimes, she said quietly, people need different kinds of help. That evening, Elena announced she was going to her book club that met on Thursday nights, except it was Tuesday. I thought book club was Thursdays, I said. We moved it this week. Sarah had a conflict. Sarah, Elena's book club friend who'd been dead for 6 months after a car accident. I'd been to the funeral. Give Sarah my regards, I said. Elena paused at the door, her hand on the knob. For a moment, I thought she might confess, might break down and tell me the truth. Instead, she smiled that practiced smile and said, I will. After she left, I went up to our bedroom and did something I'd never done in 8 years of marriage. I searched through Elena's things. I found the burner phone in her gym bag, tucked inside a zippered pocket behind her protein powder and hair ties, a cheap prepaid phone with one contact. D. The message history made my stomach turn. Can't wait to see you tonight. Ray's working late again. The way you looked at me in the gym today, I wanted to kiss you right there. I'm falling in love with you. I know it's complicated, but I can't help it. Soon we won't have to sneak around anymore. I promise. There were photos too. Elena in lingerie I'd never seen, poses I'd never been treated to, expressions of desire that had been absent from our bedroom for months. But it was the last exchange that hit me like a physical blow. Elena. Ray's getting suspicious. He asked about the late-night texts. D. Maybe it's time to tell him. We can't keep this up forever. Elena. Not yet. I need to figure out the financial stuff first. The house, the business, everything. I'm not walking away empty-handed. D. Whatever you need, baby. I'm not going anywhere. Elena. I know. That's why I love you. I sat on our bed, holding the evidence of my wife's betrayal, and felt something I'd never experienced before. Not just anger or hurt, but a cold, calculating fury that seemed to settle in my chest like ice. Elena wasn't just cheating on me. She was planning to leave me, and she was strategizing about how to take as much as possible when she did. I took photos of every message, every image, every piece of evidence on that phone. Then I put it back exactly where I'd found it and went downstairs to pour myself a very large whiskey. My phone buzzed with a text from Louise. "Dinner tomorrow? I'm making that pasta thing you like." I typed back, "Can't tomorrow. I'm going to be busy destroying my wife's life." Then I deleted the message and typed, "Sounds great. See you at 7. But I wasn't going to see Louise tomorrow. I was going to see Derek Mallory. Derek Mallory's gym occupied a converted warehouse in the trendy part of downtown Eastport, all exposed brick and industrial lighting designed to make rich people feel edgy while they worked out. The sign outside read Forge Fitness in bold black letters with a smaller tagline, "Where champions are made." I'd spent the morning researching Derek Mallory, and what I'd found made me dislike him even more. 28 years old, former college football player who'd never quite made it to the pros. He'd opened Forge Fitness 3 years ago with money from his parents, who owned half the commercial real estate in town. His social media presence was exactly what you'd expect. Inspirational quotes about grinding and hustling, photos of expensive cars and watches, videos of him lifting heavy things while staring intensely at himself in the mirror. The kind of guy who called women females and thought buying protein powder in bulk made him an entrepreneur. I pushed through the glass doors at 2 in the afternoon, when I knew Elena would be at work and Derek would be between training sessions. The gym was busy but not packed, a mix of stay-at-home moms, retirees, and people who worked flexible schedules. Derek was easy to spot. He stood near the free weights, wearing a tight black t-shirt that showcased every muscle he'd spent years building. He was talking to a middle-aged woman about her form on lat pull-downs, his hand resting on her shoulder, in what I now recognized as his signature move. I approached slowly, taking in the details. He was taller than he looked in photos, probably 6'3", with the kind of symmetrical features that looked good on Instagram. His hair was perfectly styled, even though he was supposedly working out, and his teeth were definitely professionally whitened. "Excuse me," I said. "Are you Derek?" He turned, flashing that practiced smile. "That's me, Derek Mallory, owner of Forge Fitness. You interested in a membership?" "Maybe. I've heard great things about your training. My wife actually works out here." "Oh yeah? What's her name? I might know her." "Elena Calder." His expression didn't change, but I caught the slight tightening around his eyes, the barely perceptible pause before he responded. "Elena. Yeah, she's great. Really dedicated, always pushing herself. You're a lucky guy." "I am," I agreed. "She's been coming here for what, 4 months now? Something like that. She's made incredible progress, really transformed her whole lifestyle. She has. She's like a different person." We stood there for a moment, sizing each other up. Derek was clearly trying to figure out how much I knew, while I was enjoying watching him squirm. "So, you're interested in training?" he asked finally. "I'm interested in a lot of things, like understanding what kind of man sends motivational texts to married women at 3 in the morning. The mask slipped, just for a second, but I saw it. A flash of anger, quickly replaced by confusion and then concern. "I'm not sure what you're talking about, man. I send out group motivational texts to all my clients. It's part of the service." "Group texts? That's interesting, because the ones my wife gets seem pretty personal." Derek's jaw tightened. "Look, I don't know what you think is going on, but Elena is just a client. If you have issues with your wife, maybe you should talk to her instead of coming here and making accusations." "Oh, I've talked to her. We had a very interesting conversation with a marriage counselor yesterday. Elena was very defensive about her relationship with you. Because there's nothing to defend. We have a professional trainer-client relationship, period." I pulled out my phone and scrolled to one of the Instagram photos I'd screenshotted. Elena and Derek after a workout, his arm around her waist, both of them glowing with sweat and smiling at each other like they shared a secret. "This looks pretty professional," I said, showing him the screen. Derek glanced at the photo and shrugged. "We take pictures with all our clients. It's social media marketing. Helps build the brand." Sure it does, and I bet all your married female clients get the same level of personal attention. What's that supposed to mean? It means I know what you are, Derek. You're a predator who targets married women because they're vulnerable, and you think their husbands won't fight back. Derek stepped closer, using his height and bulk to try to intimidate me. You need to be very careful about what you're accusing me of. Or what? You'll beat me up? That would be great for your business reputation. He looked around, suddenly aware that our conversation was attracting attention from other gym members. A few people had stopped their workouts to watch us. This conversation is over, he said. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I'm leaving. But Derek, this isn't over. Not even close. I walked toward the exit, then turned back. Oh, and Derek? You might want to be more careful about your late-night texting habits. You never know who might be watching. I left him standing there, fists clenched, trying to maintain his composure in front of his clients and staff. The next part of my plan required a trip to my friend Eli's auto shop. Eli Martinez had been fixing cars for 20 years and had never met a problem he couldn't solve with the right tools and enough patience. Ray! Eli looked up from under the hood of a Honda Civic, wiping his hands on a greasy rag. What brings you by? The Subaru giving you trouble? The Subaru's fine. I need a different kind of help. Eli raised an eyebrow. What kind of help? The kind where you didn't see me here today. Eli grinned. I like where this is going. What do you need? I explained the situation, not everything, just enough to get Eli on my side. He'd met Elena a few times at barbecues and had never been impressed. So you want to mess with this guy's car? I want to inconvenience him. Nothing permanent, nothing dangerous, just enough to ruin his day. I can work with that. What's he drive? BMW M3, black. License plate says Forge One. Eli laughed. Of course it does. These gym bros are all the same. When do you want to do this? Tonight. He usually leaves the gym around 9. I'll meet you there at 9:15. Bring coffee. That evening, I sat in my car across the street from Forge Fitness, watching Derek lock up for the night. He spent 5 minutes checking his hair and his phone camera before walking to his BMW, which was parked in a spot marked Reserved for Owner. At 9:15, Eli pulled up in his beat-up pickup truck. We waited until Derek's taillights disappeared around the corner, then got to work. Eli was an artist. Within 10 minutes, he'd let the air out of all 4 tires, poured a bottle of corn syrup over the windshield, and loosened the valve stems just enough to ensure that even after Derek refilled the tires, they'd be flat again within an hour. This is juvenile, I said, watching Eli work. Sometimes juvenile is exactly what the situation calls for, he replied. Besides, you're just getting started, aren't you? He was right. This was just the beginning. The next morning, I was sitting in my home office when Elena came downstairs, already dressed for work. I'm going to be late tonight, she announced. Client dinner. Which client? The Morrison account. We're trying to close a big campaign. I nodded and smiled. Have fun. After she left, I called the Morrison Group. Elena had worked on their account 2 years ago, but they'd moved to a different agency after a dispute over billing. There was no client dinner. Elena was lying, which meant she was meeting Derek. I spent the day making phone calls and sending emails, reaching out to contacts I'd built over 15 years in business. By 5 o'clock, I had what I needed. Derek's gym was struggling financially. He was 3 months behind on rent, had maxed out his business credit cards, and was facing a lawsuit from a former client who'd been injured using faulty equipment. His parents had already bailed him out twice, and according to my source at the bank, they'd made it clear there wouldn't be a third time. Derek Mallory, the successful entrepreneur and fitness influencer, was broke, which explained a lot about his interest in my wife. Elena made good money at the ad agency, and I made even better money with my consulting firm. Our house was worth close to $1 million, and we had substantial savings and investments. Derek wasn't just sleeping with my wife. He was planning to marry her bank account. That evening, I drove to the Birch Room, an upscale bar where Elena's co-workers liked to gather for drinks. I'd been there enough times to know the regulars, including Fiona Walsh, Elena's closest friend at the agency. Fiona was holding court at her usual table, regaling a group of younger employees with stories about her weekend in Boston. She was the kind of woman who treated gossip like currency and always knew everyone's business before they knew it themselves. "Ray!" she called out when she spotted me. "What are you doing here? Where's Elena?" "Client dinner," I said, sliding into an empty chair. "Thought I'd grab a drink while I waited for her to finish." "Client dinner on a Wednesday? Must be important." "The Morrison Group. Big campaign, apparently." Fiona's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose slightly. "Morrison? I thought they fired us." "Did they?" Elena didn't mention that. "Oh, honey," Fiona said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "You might want to double-check that story." I pretended to look confused and concerned, letting Fiona draw her own conclusions. Within minutes, she was speculating about Elena's whereabouts and sharing theories with the rest of the table. "I mean, I'm sure it's nothing," Fiona said, clearly hoping it was something. "But Elena has been acting strange lately. All those gym sessions, the new clothes, the constant phone checking. You've noticed that too?" "Honey, we all have. And that trainer of hers? Derek something? He's been sniffing around the agency, picking her up for lunch, bringing her protein shakes. It's all very intimate." I let Fiona and her friends dissect my marriage for another 20 minutes, occasionally asking innocent questions that guided the conversation in useful directions. By the time I left, half of Elena's co-workers believed she was having an affair, and Fiona was already planning how she'd break the news to the rest of the office. Sometimes the best revenge is just giving people permission to say what they're already thinking. I got home at 10:30 to find Elena's car in the driveway. She was in the living room, curled up on the couch in her pajamas, watching Netflix with a glass of wine. "How was the client dinner?" I asked. "Exhausting. Morrison is demanding, but I think we made progress." "That's great, honey. I'm proud of you for working so hard to win them back." She looked up sharply. "Win them back? Well, they did fire us 2 years ago, right? It must be nice to have a second chance with them." Elena's face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, realization, panic, and finally resignation. "Ray, it's okay," I said. "We don't have to talk about it tonight. You look tired." I kissed the top of her head and headed upstairs, leaving her sitting there with her wine and her lies. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stay away from my gym and stay away from me. This is your only warning." I smiled and typed back, "Or what, Derek? You'll send me motivational texts at 3 a.m.? His response came immediately. "I'm serious. You don't want to mess with me." "Actually, I really do. See you soon." I blocked his number and went to bed, sleeping better than I had in months. Tomorrow, things were going to get interesting. I woke up Thursday morning to the sound of Elena screaming. She was standing in our driveway in her bathrobe, staring at her car. Someone had spray-painted "cheater" across the windshield in bright red letters. "Oh my God," I said, rushing outside. "Who would do this?" "I don't know." Elena was near tears, which was remarkable because I hadn't seen her cry in 3 years. "This is insane! Why would someone vandalize my car?" I looked around at our neighbors, who were starting to emerge from their houses to see what the commotion was about. Mr. Brody from next door was particularly interested, standing on his porch in his bathrobe with his morning coffee. "Should we call the police?" I asked. "No," Elena said quickly. "I mean, what are they going to do? It's just paint. I'll call my insurance company." "Are you sure? This seems like harassment. Maybe it's connected to someone at work. A disgruntled client." Elena was scrubbing at the paint with a paper towel, which only made it worse. "I just want to clean it off and forget about it." I helped her cover the windshield with cardboard so she could drive to work, playing the supportive husband while internally celebrating the success of my 3 a.m. vandalism mission. "I'm sorry this happened," I said, putting my arm around her. "Some people are just cruel." After Elena left for work in her vandalized car, I called in sick to my own job and spent the morning implementing phase 2 of my plan. Derek's gym opened at 6 a.m., which meant he was usually there by 5:30 to set up. His apartment was a 10-minute drive from the gym, in a complex that catered to young professionals who wanted to feel sophisticated without paying downtown prices. I knew his routine because I'd been watching him for 3 days. Derek was a creature of habit. Same coffee shop every morning, same route to work, same parking spot. Predictable people are easy to manipulate. At 11 a.m., I called Forge Fitness from a blocked number. "Forge Fitness, this is Derek." I disguised my voice, making it deeper and more official. "Mr. Mallory, this is Officer Johnson with the Eastport Police Department. We've received a report of vandalism involving your vehicle. Can you step outside and check your car?" "Vandalism? What kind of vandalism?" "Just step outside, sir. I'm in the parking lot." I hung up and watched from across the street as Derek emerged from his gym, looking around for a police officer who didn't exist. When he saw his BMW, he started cursing loud enough for me to hear from 50 yards away. I'd been more creative with Derek's car than with Elena's. In addition to spray painting "Home Wrecker" on the driver's side, I'd covered the windshield with honey and birdseed. The local pigeons had discovered this treat around dawn and were now treating Derek's BMW like an all-you-can-eat buffet. Derek spent 20 minutes trying to shoo away the birds while scraping honey and bird droppings off his car. Several of his gym members gathered to watch, some of them taking photos and videos that would undoubtedly end up on social media. The best part was watching Derek try to maintain his cool, professional demeanor while covered in honey and surrounded by aggressive pigeons. His carefully styled hair was now decorated with feathers and birdseed, and his expensive workout clothes were stained with honey and worse things. I drove home feeling better than I had in months. That afternoon, I received a call from Dr. Marks. "Ray, I hope you don't mind me calling. I wanted to check in after yesterday's session." "Not at all. I appreciate you reaching out. I'm concerned about Elena. Her defensiveness and evasiveness are concerning patterns. Have you two talked since yesterday?" "We've talked. She's still maintaining that nothing inappropriate is happening with her trainer." "I see. Ray, I want you to know that I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've seen this situation many times. If Elena is having an affair, the marriage counseling process can actually make things worse in the short term." "How so?" "Because it forces the cheating partner to confront their behavior, which often makes them more secretive and defensive. They may escalate their outside relationship as a way of avoiding the difficult conversations happening in therapy." "That's actually very helpful to know. I also want you to know that you have options. You don't have to stay in a marriage where you're being deceived and manipulated." "I'm starting to realize that." "Good. And Ray, document everything. If this marriage ends, you'll want to have evidence of Elena's infidelity for the divorce proceedings." After hanging up with Dr. Marks, I spent an hour organizing all the evidence I'd collected. Photos of the burner phone messages, screenshots of social media posts, a timeline of Elena's lies and suspicious behavior. I also started researching divorce attorneys, focusing on ones who specialized in cases involving adultery and financial misconduct. Elena came home that evening in a foul mood, complaining about her car, her co-workers, and the stress of managing difficult clients. "People are so judgmental," she said, pouring herself a large glass of wine. "Everyone at work was asking about my car, making assumptions, gossiping. It's exhausting." "What kind of assumptions?" "You know how people are. They see cheater spray-painted on someone's car and immediately jump to conclusions." "Well, to be fair, that's usually why people vandalize cars that way." Elena shot me a sharp look. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. I'm just saying that's the most common motive for that type of vandalism. Relationship drama." Are you suggesting I deserve this? Of course not. I'm just trying to understand why someone would target you specifically. Elena stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to figure out how much I knew and how much I was guessing. I think someone is trying to cause problems in our marriage, she said finally. Who would do that? I don't know. Maybe someone who's jealous of what we have. The irony was breathtaking. Elena was being destroyed by her own lies, and she was blaming mysterious enemies for trying to ruin our marriage. Maybe we should increase security, I suggested. Install cameras, change the locks. That seems extreme. Someone vandalized your car in our driveway, Elena. What if they escalate? She looked genuinely worried for the first time since this whole thing started. You think they might? I think people who are willing to commit crimes to make a point aren't usually satisfied with just one incident. That night, Elena triple-checked the locks and asked me to sleep with a baseball bat next to the bed. The woman who'd been sneaking around with another man for months was now terrified that someone might be watching her. Friday morning brought a new development. I was having coffee with Louise at her cafe when Fiona Walsh walked in, looking like she had news to share. "Ray!" she called out, approaching our table with obvious excitement. "I'm so glad I ran into you. How's Elena doing after yesterday?" Yesterday? The incident at work. I heard it was quite dramatic. I exchanged glances with Louise, who was clearly intrigued. "I'm not sure what you mean, Fiona." "Oh." Fiona looked disappointed that she wasn't breaking news to me. "I thought Elena would have told you. Someone called the agency yesterday claiming to be a private investigator. They were asking questions about Elena's relationship with Derek Mallory." I felt a chill run down my spine. I hadn't made any such call. What kind of questions? About whether they'd been seen together, whether Elena had been taking long lunches, that sort of thing. HR got involved and Elena had to meet with them to address the concerns. And? Well, Elena denied everything, of course. But you know how these things go. Once people start asking questions, they start paying attention, and Elena hasn't exactly been subtle about her friendship with Derek. After Fiona left, Louise leaned across the table. "Ray, what the hell is going on?" I told her everything. The late-night texts, the burner phone, the lies about client dinners, Derek's financial problems, my vandalism campaign. Jesus Christ, Ray. You spray-painted her car? Among other things. And now someone else is investigating them? Apparently. Louise sat back in her chair, processing this information. You know what this means, right? What? You're not the only one who knows about the affair. Someone else is involved. Someone who's willing to call Elena's workplace and ask questions. The implications hit me like a truck. If someone else was investigating Elena and Derek, it meant one of several possibilities. Derek had other enemies, Elena had other secrets, or someone was trying to help me without my knowledge. I need to find out who made that call, I said. How? I'm going to ask Derek directly. Louise grabbed my arm. Ray, that's not a good idea. If he's feeling cornered, he might do something stupid. He's already doing something stupid. He's sleeping with my wife. Promise me you'll be careful. This isn't a game anymore. She was right, but I was past the point of being careful. Elena and Derek had made their choice when they decided to betray me. Now, they were going to live with the consequences. That afternoon, I drove to Forge Fitness and waited in the parking lot until Derek emerged for his lunch break. He was walking to his newly cleaned BMW when I approached. We need to talk, I said. Derek spun around, his face immediately hardening when he saw me. I told you to stay away from me. Someone called my wife's workplace yesterday asking questions about your relationship. Was that you? What? No. Why would I do that? Maybe you're trying to force her hand, make her choose between her marriage and her affair. I didn't call anyone, and there's no affair. How many times do I have to tell you that? Until you stop lying. Derek, I know about the burner phone. I know about the late-night texts. I know Elena's been lying to me about where she is and who she's with. Derek's composure cracked completely. Look, man, I never meant for this to happen. Elena came to me for training and things just developed. Finally, the truth. How long? 3 months, maybe 4. I don't know, it just happened gradually. And you thought what? That I'd never find out? That you could just steal my wife and I'd be too stupid to notice? It's not like that. Elena's not happy in her marriage. She told me you two barely talk, that you've grown apart. So you decided to help her grow apart from me faster. Derek ran his hands through his hair, looking genuinely distressed for the first time since I'd known him. I love her, okay? This isn't just some fling. We're talking about a future together. A future built on lies and betrayal. A future where she's actually happy. I stared at this man who'd been sleeping with my wife, who'd been planning to take my life apart piece by piece, and felt something cold and final settle in my chest. Derek, I want you to listen to me very carefully. I'm going to destroy you. Not just your relationship with Elena, but your business, your reputation, your entire life in this town. And when I'm done, you're going to wish you'd never heard the name Elena Calder. Are you threatening me? I'm promising you. I walked back to my car, leaving Derek standing in the parking lot, finally understanding that he'd made an enemy who was smarter, more connected, and far more dangerous than he'd ever imagined. That evening, Elena announced that she was going to spend the weekend at her sister's house in Boston. I need some time to think, she said. About us, about everything that's been happening. Of course, I said. Take all the time you need. But Elena didn't have a sister in Boston. She'd been an only child, and her parents had died in a car accident 5 years ago. I knew exactly where she was going, and with whom, and I was going to be ready for them when they got back. Elena left for her fictional sister's house at 10 a.m. Saturday morning, her overnight bag packed with clothes I'd never seen her wear and lingerie she'd never worn for me. She kissed me goodbye at the door, a performance of marital normalcy that would have been touching if it hadn't been completely fake. I'll call you tonight, she promised. Drive safely. Give my love to Sarah. Sarah was the name of Elena's book club friend who died 6 months ago. If Elena had been paying attention to anything other than her affair, she would have caught the reference. Instead, she just smiled and said she would. I waited exactly 1 hour after Elena left, then drove to Derek's apartment complex. His BMW was gone, which confirmed what I already knew. They were spending the weekend together, probably at some romantic bed and breakfast where they could pretend their relationship wasn't built on lies and betrayal. But I wasn't there for Derek. I was there for his roommate. Ricky Santos was Derek's childhood friend, business partner, and the kind of guy who made poor decisions for quick money. According to my research, Ricky had a record of petty theft, had been fired from 3 jobs for stealing, and was currently on probation for check fraud. He was also the weak link in Derek's operation. I knocked on the apartment door at 11:15. Ricky answered in boxers and a stained t-shirt, looking like he'd just woken up. Yeah? Ricky Santos, I'm Ray Calder. I think we need to talk about Derek. Ricky's eyes went wide. Oh shit, you're the husband. I'm the husband. Can I come in? Ricky looked around nervously, then stepped aside to let me enter. The apartment was exactly what I'd expected. Expensive furniture that Derek had bought to impress people, mixed with Ricky's collection of video games, empty beer bottles, and takeout containers. Look, man, Ricky said, whatever Derek's doing with your wife, I'm not involved. I just live here. Relax, Ricky. I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want information. What kind of information? I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo I'd taken of Derek's financial records. Did you know Derek's business is failing? 3 months behind on rent, maxed out credit cards, facing a lawsuit? Ricky's face went pale. He told me business was great. Business is terrible. Derek's broke, and he's been lying to you about it. Just like he's been lying to my wife about loving her. I sat down on Derek's expensive couch and looked around the apartment. Nice place. Must be expensive. How much is Derek charging you for rent? $800 a month. That's a good deal. Too bad Derek won't be able to afford this place much longer. Ricky sat down across from me, suddenly looking very worried. What do you mean? I mean Derek's planning to run away with my wife and her money. He's going to leave you holding the bag for his debts and his failed business. This was partially true. Derek was definitely interested in Elena's money, and he was definitely planning a future with her. The part about leaving Ricky behind was speculation, but based on Derek's character, it was educated speculation. He wouldn't do that, Ricky said, but he didn't sound convinced. Wouldn't he? When's the last time Derek helped you out financially? When's the last time he treated you like a partner instead of a servant? Ricky was quiet for a long moment, and I could see him thinking back through his relationship with Derek, probably remembering all the times he'd been taken advantage of. What do you want from me? He asked finally. I want you to tell me about the phone call. What phone call? Someone called my wife's workplace on Thursday asking questions about her relationship with Derek. Was that you? No, man. I don't even know where your wife works. Then who? I don't know. But Derek's been paranoid all week, talking about someone following him, someone messing with his car. Has anyone else been asking questions about Derek? Ex-girlfriends, business partners, clients? Ricky hesitated, then nodded. There was this woman who came by the gym on Wednesday. Blonde, maybe 40, real angry. She was yelling at Derek about something, but I couldn't hear what. Did you get her name? Michelle something. She used to date Derek before he started messing around with your wife. This was interesting. Derek had an ex-girlfriend who was angry enough to confront him publicly. An ex-girlfriend who might be willing to cause problems for him. Do you know how to reach Michelle? She's on Derek's Instagram, Michelle Reeves. She's always commenting on his posts, usually saying nasty stuff. I thanked Ricky and left him sitting in Derek's apartment, probably wondering if he needed to start looking for a new place to live. Michelle Reeves was easy to find on social media. Her Instagram profile was public, and her recent posts told a clear story of a woman scorned. Photos of her and Derek from 6 months ago, happy and smiling, followed by increasingly bitter posts about fake people and users and men who think they can trade up. Her most recent post from Thursday afternoon was a photo of Derek's gym with the caption, "Some people are about to learn that karma is real." I sent her a direct message. Hi Michelle, I'm Ray Calder. I think we have a mutual problem with Derek Mallory. Would you be willing to talk? Her response came within minutes. The husband? Hell yes, I want to talk. Can you meet tonight? We arranged to meet at a coffee shop downtown at 7 p.m. I spent the afternoon preparing for the conversation, researching Michelle's background, and thinking about how to turn her anger into useful action. Michelle Reeves was 34, worked as a real estate agent, and had dated Derek for 8 months before he'd started his affair with Elena. Based on her social media posts, she'd been serious about the relationship and had been blindsided when Derek suddenly became distant and started canceling dates. She was exactly the kind of ally I needed. Michelle was already waiting when I arrived at the coffee shop, sitting in a corner booth with a large latte and a determined expression. She was attractive in a different way than Elena, more natural, less polished, with the kind of confidence that came from earning her own success rather than relying on appearances. You must be Ray, she said as I approached. And you must be the woman who's been making Derek's life difficult. Guilty as charged, though I have to say, the spray paint on his car was a nice touch. Very artistic. I sat down across from her, impressed despite myself. How did you know that was me? Please, Derek's been paranoid all week about mysterious enemies, and then suddenly the husband of his latest conquest shows up asking questions? It wasn't hard to put together. His latest conquest? Michelle's expression hardened. You didn't think your wife was Derek's first married client, did you? The man has a type. Successful, unhappy wives with money and low self-esteem. Elena's just the most recent. This was news to me, and it changed everything. Derek wasn't just a cheating boyfriend. He was a serial predator who targeted vulnerable married women. How many others? That I know of? 3 in the past 2 years. All married, all wealthy, all convinced that Derek was their soulmate who was going to rescue them from their boring lives. What happened to them? Same thing that's going to happen to your wife. Derek gets them to leave their husbands, takes half their money in the process, then moves on to the next target when the novelty wears off. I felt a mixture of satisfaction and disgust. Satisfaction because Elena was about to get exactly what she deserved, and disgust because I'd been married to someone stupid enough to fall for such an obvious con. So why are you helping me? Because Derek destroyed my life, and I want to return the favor. He made me fall in love with him, convinced me to loan him money for his business, then dumped me the second he found a richer target. I'm out $15,000 and 6 months of my life. And you want revenge. I want justice. There's a difference. We spent the next hour planning Derek's downfall. Michelle had financial records proving Derek had borrowed money from her under false pretenses, evidence of his pattern of targeting married women, and contacts at the bank who could verify his business was failing. More importantly, she had a plan. Derek's gym lease is up for renewal next month, Michelle explained. His landlord is already looking for a reason to evict him because of the missed rent payments. If we can document his inappropriate relationships with clients, create some public scandals, maybe get some complaints filed with the Better Business Bureau, his business fails, and he can't afford to keep pursuing married women. Exactly. And without his gym and his fake success, Derek becomes just another broke loser with commitment issues. What about Elena? What about her? She made her choice. Let her live with the consequences. I liked Michelle Reeves. Sunday evening, Elena returned from her weekend with Derek, glowing with the kind of happiness I hadn't seen from her in years. She was relaxed, affectionate, and more talkative than she'd been in months. How was your sister? I asked. Good. Really good. We had some great conversations about life, about relationships, about what makes people happy. I'm glad. You seem more relaxed. I am. Sometimes you need to step back and get perspective on your life, you know? Absolutely. Did you come to any conclusions? Elena looked at me for a long moment, and I could see her weighing her words carefully. I think we need to talk, Ray. Really talk about where we are and where we want to be. Okay, when? Soon. I just need to figure out how to say what I need to say. That night, Elena was more passionate than she'd been in months. She initiated intimacy for the first time in weeks, and for a brief moment, I almost felt guilty about what I was planning. Then I remembered the burner phone, the lies, the months of deception, and the guilt disappeared. Elena was planning to leave me, probably sooner rather than later. She was trying to ease her conscience by being a good wife for a few days before she destroyed our marriage. But I wasn't going to give her the chance. Monday morning, I called in sick to work and spent the day making phone calls. By noon, I'd filed complaints against Derek with the Better Business Bureau, the state licensing board for personal trainers, and the local health department. I'd also sent anonymous tips to 3 local gossip bloggers about Derek's pattern of inappropriate relationships with married clients. Michelle called at 2 p.m. with an update. I talked to Derek's landlord this morning. He's already planning to evict Derek at the end of the month, but I convinced him to move faster. If Derek doesn't pay his back rent by Friday, he's out. Can Derek come up with the money? Not unless he's planning to rob a bank. His credit's maxed out, his parents have cut him off, and his business account is overdrawn. What about Elena? She might loan him money. Then she'll learn the same lesson I did. Derek's good at taking money from women, but he's terrible at paying it back. That evening, Elena announced that she was going to the gym. I missed my weekend workout, so I need to make up for it. Of course. Say hi to Derek for me. Elena paused at the door, her hand on the knob. Why would you say that? He's your trainer, isn't he? I just assumed you'd see him. Right, of course. After Elena left, I drove to Forge Fitness and parked across the street. Through the windows, I could see Elena and Derek having an intense conversation near the free weights. Derek looked stressed and angry, while Elena appeared to be trying to calm him down. Their body language told the story. Derek was in crisis mode, and Elena was realizing that her perfect new life might not be so perfect after all. I took photos of their conversation, documenting the time and date, then drove home to wait for Elena's return. She came home 2 hours later, looking troubled and distracted. How was your workout? Fine. Good. Derek says I'm making great progress. That's wonderful. You've certainly been dedicated to your fitness routine. Elena nodded absently, clearly thinking about something else. Ray, hypothetically, if someone you cared about was in financial trouble, how would you help them? Hypothetically? I'd want to know why they were in trouble first. Bad luck, poor decisions, or something more serious? Poor decisions, probably, but they're trying to turn things around. In that case, I'd be very careful about getting financially involved. Money problems usually indicate deeper issues with responsibility and judgment. Elena was quiet for the rest of the evening, and I could practically see her reconsidering her future with Derek. Tuesday morning brought the first public blow to Derek's reputation. One of the gossip bloggers I'd contacted published a story titled, "Local Gym Owners' Inappropriate Client Relationships." The story didn't name Derek specifically, but it provided enough details that anyone in Eastport would know exactly who was being discussed. The story went viral locally, shared hundreds of times on Facebook, and generating dozens of comments from people who claimed to have witnessed Derek's inappropriate behavior firsthand. By noon, Forge Fitness's Google reviews had dropped from 4 stars to 2 stars, with new reviews describing Derek as unprofessional, predatory, and a homewrecker. Michelle called to tell me that Derek had spent the morning frantically trying to contact his lawyer, his landlord, and his parents. He's panicking, she said with obvious satisfaction. His phone's been ringing nonstop with people canceling memberships and training sessions. What about Elena? Haven't seen her today, but Derek keeps checking his phone like he's waiting for someone to call. That someone was probably Elena, who was dealing with her own crisis at the advertising agency. According to Fiona, who called me at lunch with an update, Elena had been called into another meeting with HR about the ongoing rumors regarding her relationship with Derek. They can't fire her for having an affair, Fiona explained, but they can make her life very difficult if they think she's creating a hostile work environment or damaging the agency's reputation. How's Elena handling it? About as well as you'd expect. She's denying everything, but everyone knows the truth. The whole office is talking about it. Wednesday brought the final blow. Derek's landlord served him with an eviction notice, giving him 72 hours to pay his back rent or vacate the premises. The health department showed up for a surprise inspection and found several violations that would require expensive fixes. And the state licensing board opened an investigation into Derek's professional conduct. Elena came home that evening looking like she'd aged 5 years in one day. Rough day at work? I asked. The worst. Ray, I need to tell you something. Here it comes, I thought. The confession, the apology, the plea for forgiveness. I'm listening. Elena sat down across from me at the kitchen table, her hands folded in front of her like she was praying. I've been having an affair. I let the silence stretch between us, watching her squirm. With Derek Mallory, my trainer. It's been going on for 3 months. I see. I never meant for it to happen. I was unhappy, and he was there, and it just happened. And now? Now I don't know what to do. Derek's business is failing. He's being evicted. There are all these rumors and investigations. His whole life is falling apart. That must be difficult for you." Elena looked up sharply, surprised by my calm tone. "Ray, aren't you angry?" "I'm disappointed, but not surprised." "What do you mean?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos I'd taken of the burner phone messages. "I've known for weeks, Elena. I've been waiting for you to tell me the truth." Elena's face went white. "You've been spying on me?" "I've been protecting myself." "Did you really think I wouldn't notice the late-night texts, the mysterious errands, the lies about client dinners?" "Ray, I can explain." "You can explain how you've been planning to leave me and take half of everything we've built together. You can explain how you've been living a double life for months while pretending to be my wife." Elena started crying, but they were tears of frustration and fear, not remorse. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to leave." "Leave?" "Pack your things and get out, tonight." "Ray, please, we can work this out. We can go to counseling, We tried counseling. You lied to the therapist just like you've been lying to me." Elena sat there crying for several minutes while I watched without emotion. Finally, she looked up at me with red eyes and a desperate expression. "What about Derek? What about him? Are you going to keep destroying his life?" I smiled, and Elena shrank back from the expression on my face. "Elena, Derek's life was already destroyed. He's a con man who targets married women for their money. You were just his latest mark." "That's not true. He loves me." "He loves your bank account. Ask him about Michelle Reeves or Sarah Chen or any of the other married women he's seduced and abandoned over the past 2 years. Elena's face went through a series of expressions as she processed this information: confusion, denial, realization, and finally, devastation. "You're lying. Call him. Ask him about the $15,000 he borrowed from Michelle and never paid back. Ask him about the other women he's been texting while he's been texting you." Elena grabbed her phone and started dialing Derek's number. I could hear it ringing, then going to voicemail. She tried 3 more times with the same result. "He's probably busy trying to find a new place to live," I said. "His eviction notice expires tomorrow." Elena stared at her phone, finally understanding that Derek wasn't going to rescue her from the consequences of her choices. "I'll pack my things," she said quietly. "Good. You can stay at a hotel tonight. Tomorrow you can figure out your next move." "Ray, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean much now, but I am sorry." "No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference." Elena went upstairs to pack while I sat in the kitchen, feeling lighter than I had in months. My marriage was over, but it had been over for months already. At least now I could stop pretending. An hour later, Elena came downstairs with 2 suitcases and her laptop bag. "I'll come back for the rest of my things this weekend. I'll have everything boxed up and ready for you." She paused at the door, looking back at me one last time. "What happens now?" "Now you get to find out what Derek Mallory is really like when he doesn't have anything to offer you." Elena left without another word, and I poured myself a very large whiskey to celebrate my freedom. But I wasn't done with Derek yet. Not even close. Thursday morning, Derek Mallory's world officially ended. I was having coffee at Louise's cafe when Michelle called with the news. "He's finished," she said, barely containing her excitement. "The eviction went through this morning. Derek's moving his equipment out of the gym right now." "Where's he going?" "Nobody knows. His apartment lease is up next month, and with his business gone, he can't afford the rent anyway. Word is, he's moving back in with his parents." Derek Mallory, the successful entrepreneur and fitness influencer, was about to become a 30-year-old man living in his parents' basement. What about Elena? That's the best part. She showed up at the gym this morning trying to give Derek money to save his business. He took it, but it wasn't nearly enough. She basically just donated her savings to a lost cause. I felt a moment of satisfaction so pure it was almost spiritual. Elena had betrayed our marriage for a man who'd taken her money and given her nothing in return. How much did she give him? 20,000, according to Ricky. Derek convinced her it was just a temporary loan to get him back on his feet. $20,000. Elena had liquidated her personal savings account to save Derek's failing business, and Derek had taken the money knowing it wouldn't be enough to matter. Is she still with him? For now, but Derek's been getting calls from other women all week. Apparently, the gossip blog story inspired some of his former targets to come forward. Elena's starting to realize she wasn't as special as she thought. That afternoon, I drove past Derek's gym one last time. The Forge Fitness sign was already gone, and Derek was loading the last of his equipment into a moving truck. He looked exhausted and defeated, his perfect hair disheveled, his expensive clothes wrinkled and stained with sweat. Elena was there too, standing beside her car looking lost and confused. She was wearing the same clothes she'd had on when she left our house, which suggested she'd spent the night helping Derek move instead of sleeping. As I watched, Derek said something to Elena that made her step back in shock. Then he got in his truck and drove away, leaving her standing alone in the empty parking lot. I rolled down my window and called out to her. "Need a ride?" Elena turned, and I was shocked by how much she'd changed in just one day. Her perfect makeup was gone, her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her eyes were red from crying. "Ray? What are you doing here?" "Watching the end of an era. Where's Derek going?" "I don't know. He said he needed space to figure things out." "And you?" Elena looked around the empty parking lot, then back at me. "I don't know that either. Get in the car, Elena. Why would you help me?" "Because despite everything, I'm not a monster, and because I think you've learned your lesson." Elena hesitated for a moment, then walked over and got in the passenger seat. We sat in silence for several minutes, watching the last remnants of Derek's business empire being loaded into trucks. "He took my money," Elena said finally. "I know. $20,000. He said it was a loan, that he'd pay me back as soon as he got back on his feet. And now? Now he's telling me he can't afford to pay me back, that his legal problems are too expensive, that he needs every penny just to survive." I started the car and pulled out of the parking lot. "Where do you want to go?" "I don't know. The hotel, I guess." We drove in silence for a few blocks before Elena spoke again. "You knew, didn't you? About the other women?" I suspected. Derek has a pattern of behavior that's pretty obvious once you know what to look for. "Michelle called me this morning. She told me about the money he borrowed from her, about the other married women he's been involved with." "What did Derek say when you confronted him?" "He said Michelle was lying, that she was just jealous. But then Sarah Chen called, and Jennifer Walsh, and 2 other women I'd never heard of." Elena was crying now, quiet tears that she didn't bother to wipe away. They all told the same story. Derek pursued them when they were vulnerable, convinced them he loved them, took their money, and then moved on to someone new. "And you believed him when he said you were different?" "I wanted to believe him. I was so unhappy, Ray. Our marriage felt like a prison, and Derek made me feel alive again." "So you decided to blow up our life together for a man you'd known for 4 months?" "I thought I loved him." "You thought you loved the idea of him. The successful businessman, the younger man who was obsessed with you, the escape from your boring suburban life." Elena nodded miserably. "You're right. I was an idiot." We pulled up in front of Elena's hotel, a mid-range chain that was probably costing her $200 a night. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you figure out how to rebuild your life. You find a new place to live, you focus on your career, you try to learn from your mistakes." "What about us?" "There is no us, Elena. You made sure of that when you chose Derek over our marriage." "But you helped me today. You didn't have to do that." I helped you because I'm not the kind of person who kicks someone when they're down. But that doesn't mean I forgive you, and it doesn't mean I want you back. Elena got out of the car, then leaned down to look at me through the passenger window. Ray, I know I don't deserve it, but I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. I believe you. But sorry doesn't fix 8 years of marriage, and it doesn't undo 4 months of lies. I know. Elena, can I give you some advice? Please. Don't try to get Derek back. He's shown you who he really is. Believe him. Elena nodded and walked toward the hotel entrance. I watched her go, feeling a mixture of pity and satisfaction. She'd gotten exactly what she deserved, but seeing her broken and defeated didn't bring me the joy I'd expected. That evening, I called Dr. Marks to let her know that Elena and I wouldn't be needing any more marriage counseling sessions. I'm sorry it didn't work out, she said. How are you doing? Better than I expected. It turns out that knowing the truth, even when it's painful, is better than living with lies. That's very mature of you, Ray. A lot of people in your situation would be consumed with anger and thoughts of revenge. Oh, I had my revenge. Elena's boyfriend's life is in ruins, and she lost $20,000 learning what kind of man he really is. Dr. Marks was quiet for a moment. Ray, what exactly did you do? I told her about the vandalism, the complaints to various agencies, the coordination with Michelle, the systematic destruction of Derek's business and reputation. I see, she said when I finished. And how do you feel about those actions now? Satisfied. Derek Mallory built his life on exploiting vulnerable women. He deserved everything that happened to him. What about Elena? Elena made her choice. She chose to believe a con man over her own husband. The consequences of that choice are hers to deal with. Ray, I'm concerned that you might have some unresolved anger issues. The level of planning and manipulation you've described goes beyond normal hurt feelings. You're probably right. But Elena and Derek started this game when they decided to have an affair. I just finished it. Have you considered that your actions might have legal consequences? Everything I did was perfectly legal. I didn't assault anyone. I didn't commit fraud. I didn't break any laws. I just made sure that Derek's victims knew what kind of man he was, and that his creditors knew he couldn't pay his bills. And the vandalism? Can't be traced back to me. Besides, Derek's got bigger problems now than some spray paint, Dr. Marks sighed. Ray, I think you should consider some individual therapy to work through your feelings about the divorce. I'll think about it. But honestly, I feel better than I have in years. My marriage was making me miserable, and I was too loyal to admit it. Now I'm free to build a life with someone who actually wants to be with me. After hanging up with Dr. Marks, I poured myself a drink and sat on my back porch, looking out at the garden Elena had never helped me plant. Tomorrow I'd start the divorce proceedings, and within a few months I'd be officially single for the first time in 8 years. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. My phone buzzed with a text from Louise. Dinner tomorrow? I'm making that pasta thing you like. I typed back, sounds perfect. I have a lot to tell you. Friday morning brought one final surprise. I was reading the newspaper over coffee when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see Derek Mallory standing on my front porch, looking like he hadn't slept in days. I opened the door, but left the chain lock engaged. What do you want, Derek? I want to talk to you, man to man. We tried that already. You lied to my face and told me nothing was happening with my wife. I know, I was wrong. But I need you to understand something. I understand everything I need to understand. You're a con man who targets married women. You destroyed my marriage, and now your life is falling apart. What else is there to know? Derek looked around nervously, then leaned closer to the door. Elena told me what you did. The complaints, the gossip blogs, the coordination with Michelle. You destroyed my business. Your business was already failing. I just made sure everyone knew about it. I lost everything because of you. You lost everything because you're a predator and a fraud. I just helped karma along. Derek's composure finally cracked completely. "You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you won." "I know I won. You're broke, homeless, and unemployed. Elena's alone in a hotel room, $20,000 poorer, and finally understanding what kind of man you really are. Meanwhile, I'm free of a lying wife and about to start the best chapter of my life." "This isn't over." "Yes, it is. Derek, you're a loser who preys on unhappy women because you can't build anything real on your own. You had your shot at ruining my life, and you failed. Now it's time for you to disappear." I closed the door and watched through the peephole as Derek stood on my porch for another minute, probably trying to think of some parting threat that would make him feel better about his situation. Finally, he walked back to his car, not the BMW, which had apparently been repossessed, but an old Honda that probably belonged to his parents. As he drove away, I realized that I felt sorry for him. Not because he didn't deserve what had happened to him, but because he was too pathetic to hate anymore. That afternoon, I met with a divorce attorney recommended by Dr. Marks. Margaret Chen was a small, fierce woman who specialized in cases involving adultery and financial misconduct. "This should be straightforward," she said, after reviewing my evidence. "Your wife committed adultery, which gives you grounds for a fault-based divorce. She also gave away marital assets without your consent, which strengthens your position regarding property division. How long will it take?" 6 months, maybe less if Elena doesn't contest it. Given the circumstances, I doubt she'll want a public trial. "What about the house?" "You'll keep it. Elena's adultery and financial misconduct make it very unlikely that a judge would award her any significant portion of your assets." I left Margaret's office feeling lighter than I had in months. Soon, Elena would be officially out of my life, and I could start over with a clean slate. That evening, Louise came over with takeout Chinese food and a bottle of wine. "So," she said, settling onto my couch with a plate of lo mein, "tell me everything." I told her about Elena's confession, about Derek's eviction, about the $20,000, about Derek's pathetic visit to my house that morning. "Jesus, Ray, you really did destroy him." "He destroyed himself. I just documented the process." "And Elena?" "Elena's learning that actions have consequences. She'll be fine eventually, but she'll never trust her own judgment about men again." Louise raised her wine glass. "To new beginnings. To new beginnings." We drank and talked until late into the night, and for the first time in months, I felt genuinely happy. My marriage was over, but my life was just beginning. 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. Elena kept her car and her remaining savings, which amounted to about $15,000 after paying for her hotel and legal fees. I kept the house, the business, and most of our investments. Elena had moved to Boston, where she'd found a job with a smaller advertising agency. According to mutual friends, she was living in a studio apartment and dating an accountant who was nothing like Derek Mallory. Derek had indeed moved back in with his parents and was working at a big box gym for $15 an hour. His Instagram account, which had once showcased his successful lifestyle, now featured inspirational quotes about overcoming adversity and starting over. Michelle had gotten her $15,000 back. Derek's parents had paid his debts as a condition of letting him move home. She'd also started dating a nice divorced father who owned a successful restaurant. As for me, I'd sold my consulting business and used the money to buy a small bookstore in downtown Eastport. It was less profitable than my previous work, but it was also less stressful and more fulfilling. I was also dating someone new, Dr. Julia Marks, who'd called me 3 months after my divorce was finalized to see how I was doing. Our first coffee date had turned into dinner, which had turned into a relationship that was everything my marriage to Elena had never been. Julia was honest, direct, emotionally intelligent, and completely unimpressed by superficial things like money or status. She was also beautiful, but in a natural way that didn't require constant maintenance and validation. "Do you ever regret what you did to Derek?" she asked one evening as we were having dinner at my house. No, I said without hesitation. Derek was a predator who destroyed marriages for money. He got exactly what he deserved. What about Elena? Elena made her choice. She chose to believe a con man over her own husband, and she paid the price for that choice. I don't wish her ill, but I don't feel guilty about what happened to her either. Julia nodded thoughtfully. You know, in my practice, I see a lot of people who've been betrayed by their spouses. Most of them spend years trying to forgive and forget, trying to rebuild trust that can never really be rebuilt. And I think your approach was healthier. You accepted the reality of the situation and acted accordingly. You didn't waste time trying to save a marriage that was already dead. I also systematically destroyed 2 people's lives. You exposed 2 people who were systematically destroying other people's lives. There's a difference. That night, as Julia slept beside me in the bed I'd once shared with Elena, I thought about the events of the past year. I'd lost a wife, but I'd gained my self-respect. I'd destroyed my marriage, but I'd saved my future. Most importantly, I'd learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting better. Elena had wanted to trade up from our boring suburban life to something more exciting. Instead, she'd traded down from a successful marriage to a studio apartment and a mountain of regret. Derek had wanted to build his fortune by exploiting vulnerable women. Instead, he'd lost everything and was back to being the mediocre man he'd always been underneath the expensive facade. And I'd wanted my wife to be honest with me and committed to our marriage. When that proved impossible, I'd found someone who was both. Sometimes life gives you exactly what you need, even when it's not what you thought you wanted. As I drifted off to sleep next to Julia, I smiled, thinking about how perfectly everything had worked out. Elena and Derek had gotten each other, 2 dishonest, selfish people who deserved whatever misery they'd find together or apart. And I'd gotten something much better. The truth, my freedom, and a chance to build a life with someone who actually deserved my love and trust. In the end, that was the best revenge of all.